Feeling guilty about eating is sadly a common experience. But when do you know if your overeating might be something more serious, like binge eating disorder? Today, I'm going to break down the differences between overeating and binge eating to provide more clarity, hopefully remove some of the stigma from these challenging topics, and help you to feel not so alone in your experiences. Managing an eating disorder can be a lonely journey. For in-depth information and strategies for managing your eating disorder, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell in the corner so you're notified when I publish a new video every Wednesday. I'm Meredith McKenzie of Parallel Wellness. I'm a registered clinical counselor, eating disorders therapist, and doctoral graduate student. In my work with hundreds of clients with eating disorders, I've helped them to loosen the grips of their eating disorder so they can find freedom from food and compensatory behaviors. Now it's your turn. Before we get started, I want to provide a disclaimer. While I am a registered clinical counselor, the information in this video is for informational and educational purposes only. If you are concerned that you might be experiencing an eating disorder, please reach out to your medical physician or someone who's trained in eating disorder work, such as a therapist or a dietitian. Over the past couple months, I've been sharing a lot about binge eating disorder, from its underlying causes to biological influences, and even the unique emotions that are associated with binge eating disorder. I've been overwhelmed by your responses and so grateful that you've chosen to come to my channel to learn about binge eating disorder and to understand yourself better. What stood out to me from the responses is how nuanced binge eating is and how we perceive and understand binge eating, and frankly, how we judge ourselves and our relationship with food. So I thought it was time to dig a little bit deeper so that we can better understand what shifts overeating into binge eating. And to start, we have to have an idea of what normal eating is. And for this, I'd like to share a piece that I often share with clients in my practice. And I wish that I knew who the author was. And if you do, please leave a comment in the comment section down below and let me know. But this is a piece that's shared throughout the eating disorder community. I've gotten it from somebody else, and it's something that I find very helpful. And I think my clients also find it helpful. So I'm going to read it for you now. Normal eating is going to the table hungry and eating until you're satisfied. It's being able to choose food you'd like and eat it and truly get enough of it. Not just stopping because you think you should. Normal eating is being able to give some thought to your food selection so you get nutritious food, but not being so wary and restrictive that you miss out on enjoyable food. Normal eating is giving yourself permission to eat sometimes because you're happy, sad, or bored, or just because it feels good. Normal eating is mostly eating 3 meals a day, or 4, or 5, or it can be choosing to munch along the way. It's leaving some cookies on the plate because you know that you can have some again tomorrow. Or it's eating more now because they taste so wonderful. Normal eating is overeating at times, feeling stuffed and uncomfortable. And it can be undereating at times and wishing you had more. Normal eating takes up some of your time and attention, but keeps its place as only one important area of your life. In short, normal eating is flexible. It varies in response to your hunger, your schedule, your proximity to food, and your feelings. Now take a moment and consider for yourself, does that sound like you and how you eat? To understand disordered eating and eating disorders, I think about emotions, thoughts, and behaviors along a continuum. And I've talked about this in depth on my video on the differences between disordered eating versus eating disorders. Overeating and binge eating are similar in a number of ways, but they're also different. So first, let's talk about what makes them similar. First, overeating and binge eating involve eating a larger portion of food than you typically would eat, and it can go beyond the feeling of satiation. Second, when we overeat or binge eat, it tends to be on food that we either psychologically or physically restrict. So this might mean that we are absolutely telling ourselves we are not allowed to eat specific foods, and we've cut those foods or food groups from our diet. Or it might be on a more psychological level when we feel that judgment of the diet mentality saying we shouldn't be eating this, I feel uncomfortable, I feel guilty when I eat it. So when I overeat or if I binge eat, I tend to choose those foods. When you overeat or binge eat, you can sometimes feel physically uncomfortable. Your stomach is stretching to accommodate for more food than it's typically used to. And unfortunately, with both overeating and binge eating, people often experience the feeling of guilt. And this is where I believe a lot of people confuse overeating with binge eating. We unfortunately live in a society that tells us that we should only be eating a set portion of food, or that we should actively be avoiding treats or fun foods. So even if you don't suffer from a clinical eating disorder, it's not uncommon that if you overeat, you might feel guilty afterwards. And the message I want to send home with this is that overeating is a part of normal eating. That guilt that you're feeling is not a reflection that you've done anything wrong or that you need to correct your behavior or your eating habits in any way. It's actually a reflection of how entrenched the diet mentality is in our society. Now, I love hearing from you, and I want to be able to provide you with information and tools that are going to help guide you on your journey in binge eating recovery. So I'm planning for an upcoming video where I want to answer your questions. So please leave a comment in the comment section down below if you have a question that you'd like to see me answer. I'm so excited for this video. So now that we've established that overeating and binge eating are two different things, let's talk about those differences. When we compare overeating to binge eating usually involves eating unusually large portions of food in one sitting. This can be compared to what typically people eat or even you yourself eat at a mealtime. You know that this portion is larger for you than what would be normal. And what really stands out about binge eating is that there's this mentality of scarcity of food, almost as though the portion or the specific food that the person's eating isn't going to be around, that they're not going to have access to it, or that this might be the last time they're going to have a chance to eat this in a very long time. So when something feels scarce, you want it and you want all that you can get. So this might look like going back for several portions of a meal, or eating uncomfortably large amounts of food at snack time after dinner, or even once you've finished one item, looking for the next thing and then looking for the next thing, not feeling satisfied with what you've already had, even if it satisfied your hunger cravings. And more specifically with binge eating disorder, this type of eating pattern happens once per week or often more. Something else that sets apart binge eating from overeating is a sense of loss of control. It can almost feel like an outer body experience for the person, where somebody else is in the driver's seat and it's not them. There's a sense of being zoned out, as though eating takes all control. And you might notice that when you binge eat, rather than when you're eating a set meal, you tend to eat in a way that's a little more chaotic, as though you're not really conscious of what's happening. Where if you weren't binge eating, you might be more likely to set out a plate, set out a specific portion, sit at the table. Binge eating doesn't have that same amount of structure to it. Comparatively, when somebody overeats, they tend to be much more conscious of the decisions they're making about what to eat and when to eat it. Another big difference between overeating and binge eating is that when you binge eat, you tend to eat really quickly. There's this sense of urgency that comes with binge eating. Food isn't enjoyed and savored the way it would be if you were overeating. Binge eating is less of a pleasurable experience and more one of pressured immediacy. When you binge eat, you might notice that you're too much in your head or thinking about the next item of food that you're gonna go get to eat than being able to sit there and enjoy what you're eating. Overeating and binge eating are also set apart by the physical pain that a person experiences. I'm not gonna lie, when you overeat, you can definitely feel discomfort. You might unbutton your pants or feel more lethargic, but it's not the same level of intensity of pain that somebody feels when they binge eat. When you binge eat, you're not able to be fully aware of the cues that your body is sending you, that you are full and that you have satiated that hunger cue. This level of discomfort can make it difficult to move or even difficult to breathe. And people who binge eat often report feeling bloated for several hours or even a day after a binge. A very big difference between overeating and binge eating is the amount of secrecy that's involved with binge eating. When people binge eat, they feel a lot of shame and they do have awareness that the way they're eating isn't typical. So they prefer to binge eat in privacy, where they can do it without the judgment of other people. Also, since it's not the same as overeating, binge eating isn't a social activity. The goal of binge eating isn't sharing and celebrating a moment with friends and family. It's managing those urges to eat and soothing the emotional discomfort that's associated with it. Opposite to this, overeating typically does happen in social settings or when we're celebrating a holiday. We want to savor the moment or enjoy a special meal, so we eat a little bit more than we usually would. But we want to share this moment rather than doing it privately. Finally, a huge difference between binge eating and overeating is the amount of guilt, shame, and self-disgust a person feels when they binge eat. Unfortunately, because of the messages we receive from our society, we often do experience guilt when we overeat. However, this guilt is intensified and accompanied by shame and self-disgust when you binge eat. We blame ourselves for caving into our urges or apply negative labels to ourselves because we're so horrible for letting it happen again. These negative emotions cause the experience of binge eating to have an aftermath period, where the person's consumed with negative thoughts and emotions rather than being able to move on with their day. In contrast, when you overeat, you may briefly feel poorly about yourself or how much you've eaten, but then you're able to move past it and go forward and enjoy the rest of your day. So there it is. I hope this video helps you to better understand your eating behaviors and to clarify whether you are overeating or maybe there's something more serious going on like binge eating. In the coming weeks, I'll be digging more into binge eating disorder, and I want to know your questions. Please comment below and let me know if there's something that you want to know about binge eating or something that hasn't made sense to you. I'm also going to be providing a link in the description box down below where you can DM me rather than posting your questions publicly. I won't be publishing anybody's names in the question and answer video that I'm going to be creating. If you're looking to get started on your eating disorder journey, I've created a mindful eating log that I use in my practice with clients with binge eating disorder all the time. I've provided a link in the description box down below where you can go and download a copy for yourself. You're gonna wanna check out the rest of my videos on eating disorders and binge eating. So I provided links in the description box down below where you can go and watch all these videos. If you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share the video with anyone that you think would benefit from learning more about disordered eating or binge eating disorder. I look forward to seeing you in the next video on Wednesday.